In this video, I want to show you how I clean up this watercolor floral painting and create diamond repeat pattern in Affinity Designer. I usually start by cleaning up my art in Affinity Photo because I have a few more options than from the pixel persona in Affinity Designer, and also because I can just finish cleaning up my assets here, put them over into the assets library, and then whenever I'm ready to make a pattern, my asset it's already available since the asset library it's linked. So the first thing I always do is to take my artwork and create palette from it, and I just did that. I basically, all you have to do is make sure you have the swatches tab selected. If it's not available, just head over to window and make sure that you select swatches. Then head over to the three bars in the burger menu, and then in there you can select create palette from document, and you can create it as an application palette. And the reason why I do this is because I also want to link it and then be able to use it in Affinity Designer or in Affinity Publisher later. So once you do that, make sure you come back to the burger menu or the three bars and then link palette if it doesn't show the link in there. That way you'll have it available in the other apps later. So now that's done, the next step is to, for me, I usually just duplicate because I want to keep the original. So just in the layers panel, Control J, I'm using a PC, Windows PC, and then I add a layer in between the two, a pixel layer, and I fill that layer with a dark color, usually just black. And in order to fill that, you can select this bucket or the letter J in your keyboard. We'll do that and fill that middle layer. Then I'm gonna go ahead and hide that bottom one and keep it for later. The next thing I want to do with these flowers is they're a little light, so I want to play around with the levels and maybe with the curves a little bit to give it a little bit more brightness and color and more depth. So I like the curves a lot. Let's see how that's gonna work. So just select the curves and just enough to make it, I think that brings up a little bit deeper, darker color. So I like that. I'm going to go ahead and merge that because I am using a copy of it. If I mess it up, I can always go back to the original version, but I like these. And the next thing we can do is to go ahead and remove the background. There's a lot of shadow that forms around in some of my artwork because my scanner it's a little bit smaller than the size of the paper that I've been using, but we can select that as well. So now let's head over to the flood selection tool or the magic wand and select at the top in the contextual menu. I usually use a small tolerance, so I'm keeping it to around 5 and make sure that it's contiguous, because otherwise it's going to try to select things inside the flowers and things that we may not want to remove. So just go ahead and select an area in the actual paper side, and it's looking fairly good in terms of the selection. I have the shadow here, so I'm going to hit the shift in the keyboard and click on this shadow area. It's adding a little bit of that shadow area. The rest I can just erase, so but I just want to make sure that I now remove some of these areas from my selection. So I change over to the freehand selection tool, and then with the alt, make sure I have the freehand selection tool. Okay, now with the alt you can remove from that selection. So I'm going to go ahead and remove some of these pink here in this flower. Okay, then what else? This other pink here as well, alt, and I can remove some of these as well, and here as well. It looks like I have everything that I want is properly selected. I think there's a little bit here as well, so let's bring up a little bit of that. And here I just want to kind of smooth it out just enough. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I can go ahead and then hit delete, and that's going to erase all that white around it. Then deselect, hit escape to deselect, and it's looking okay. There's some areas now that I can go back to that magic wand, or it's called flood selection tool, and select on the white areas. Go back to the flood selection tool, the magic wand, and select some of these white areas in the middle and hit delete. Let's see. Now I can increase the tolerance, maybe let's try 10%, and select this next area. Yes, and it does a good job. Similarly around here and around this area as well. Now I can go ahead and just pick the eraser and clean up just enough. Let's use this, increase the size of the eraser, which is the bracket, the right bracket, and just clean up this area, all this white around it. Okay, there's some white around this area. I can make this eraser a little bit smaller so I can get into some of these smaller areas. Okay, so now the next thing I like to do is to refine those edges. If you see in some areas here, in some of the darker colors, it's easier to see, but we need to remove this white. And I have this little area here that I want to remove as well. So let's pick the magic wand, select that, make sure that there's nothing else here. Okay, so the next thing is I go to my library because I already have a macro that shrinks the selection by 2 pixels, feathers by 0.5, inverses the selection, and then deletes. I'll show you the first time on how to do this manually, and then we'll run the macro maybe another time. So first escape to deselect, then we want to select, go in the layer, hit control, click on the layer, and you will have the selection. So in order to clean up that white area or that white line that forms around the artwork, let's go to select, grow and shrink, and let's do -2 pixels, which is what I used in my macro, and then apply that. And then the same thing, let's go to select, and now we're going to use feather, and then let's do that by 0.5, which is what I already recorded in my macro. Apply, and what that does is shrinks the selection, so you see the selection is inside of the artwork by 2 pixels. Then the next thing that I do, that I have in my macro, is inverse the selection. So now it's going to select everything outside of my artwork. And the way that we will know that that is working is to see the marching ants around it in the document. So the same way, select, invert pixel selection, which is Control-Shift-I. And now you see that everything that is outside, it's selected. And now the next step in my macro is delete, so I just hit delete. And that does a good job of cleaning up. Actually, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to undo so you can see close-up of the selection, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit delete again so you can see it does do a really good job. And now hit escape. I still have to do it maybe one more time to remove a little bit of this white, but now that you know how to do it, I can just go ahead and run the macro. And then these other areas, they have a little bit of paper still showing. We can clean those up with the eraser. Okay, so let's do that quickly. Let's use the eraser here. There's one here, and the left bracket to reduce the size, and the right bracket to increase the size of your eraser. And also you can use the same for your brushes. And then here I just want to kind of smooth it out just enough. This and here I just want to change my mind. I just want to smooth it out just enough as well. Undo that. Okay, just smooth it out just enough. Okay, a little bit here as well. Get rid of some of that paper. And now let's zoom into another area so we can see the macro. It does the same thing that we just did with the selection. Okay, so go back to the move tool, then let's make the selection. So click Control in your keyboard and click on the actual icon in your layers panel, and then that will make the selection. And then we'll just zoom in so you can see we're trying to remove this little white left in here. So let's run the macro that is going to do the same thing that we just did manually. Shrink by 2 pixels, feather by 0.5, inverses the selection and deletes that excess. So just click on it and it looks good. It looks a lot better. So now I have an asset that I can use for my pattern. So the next thing I do is, now that it's clean, I add it to my asset library and then pick up from there. So the next thing is I go to my asset library, and then if you don't have the tab available, just go to Windows and make sure you have assets selected, and just make sure you have the move tool, and you can just select it and move it over to your asset library. And the next step for us is to head over to Affinity Designer so that we can work on the pattern. So here in Affinity Designer, I'm going to create a new document, and I usually start with 24 by 24 because I want to make sure that I use the largest possible size. And so it's 24 inches by 24 inches at 300 dpi, and the color mode is standard, and I like transparent background, so I hit create. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to use diamond shape pattern. So let's go to the rectangle tool. It makes it a lot easier. So just go to the rectangle tool, and let's go ahead and make a rectangle here that is 24 by 24. And I want to go over to my swatches, and in my fill I want to set to no fill, and in my stroke I just want it doesn't matter, any color. I have black selected here. I just want to make sure that I have just enough stroke to be able to see it. So let's see, let's just do like five points. Okay, now the next thing I want to do, because I want to do a diamond shape pattern, is to rotate it. So you can click shift and you can rotate by 15 degrees angle. So I just want to rotate 45 degrees. Now I want to shrink this diamond, or rotate it square, so that I can fit it inside my 24 by 24 pattern. So let's do that. I can hit shift and alt, and then just make sure that you have this snapping selected. So make sure that it snaps in the end. And then the same thing from the bottom, make sure that it snaps in the center and in the middle. And just to confirm the sides. Okay. Okay, so now with these, the next thing I want to do is to bring these into this diamond shape into my symbols. I want to create a symbol so that anything that I create inside my symbol, it repeats anywhere else that I have this other symbol. So I think it's a little bit difficult for me to explain, but we'll get there. So the next thing is, if you don't have your symbols tab open, the same thing, go to Windows, select symbols, and make sure that it's open. Now with the diamond selected, hit create, and you create a symbol. So now we have the symbol, and it's created in my symbols panel. So the next thing we need to do is to repeat it in the four corners. So hit Alt and grab it, and just make sure that it's that you see both the red lines and the green lines. Okay. Just want to make sure that the original symbol is like the right dimensions. Okay. Okay, because anything, then we have this symbol. Now hit Alt and then duplicate it. Make sure that the green lines and the red lines are showing, everything is aligned. Now let's grab it one more time. Hit Alt and grab it. Green lines and red lines are aligned. And one last time for this other quadrant, the green lines and the red lines are aligned. So that it's going to give me the top four. It's going to give me the, I'm just going to go ahead and Control G, groups them, and I'm just going to rename, these are the repeats, and this original symbol is the one in the center, and this is the, just label it as the pattern. So one other thing that I like to do before I export it as a template is I just build the background around it so that I can put it all the way to the bottom. Go to the swatches, go to the fill and select the fill color. And here, for example, you cannot see outside of my symbol, but you see that the rectangle is a lot larger. So the one thing that you want to do is you want to go to view mode and clip to canvas. If you can see, here is the backward slash in your keyboard. So from now on, I'll use the backward slash in the keyboard. Okay, but when you click to canvas, you can see everything around it. And one thing I forgot is that go to my repeats, and I think we need extra copies. And make sure that I have the move tool selected. Let's make extra copies in these areas to make sure that we see the full scope of the pattern. Okay, and make sure now anything that I create here in this pattern, for example, let's see, I want to create something, it will repeat in all the other symbols, in all the other diamonds. So now we're ready for our bringing in the artwork and creating the pattern. So let me go ahead and delete these. And let's go over to my assets. I saved it in these watercolor assets earlier from Affinity Photo, and now I want to go ahead and select the asset and bring it over. When you bring it over, the one thing that you're going to see is here in the contextual menu, it says 1200 dpi, and that is the size that I scanned it in my scanner. It goes up to 1200, so that's the largest size I can have. So I can increase the size just enough. I like the way it looks, and I may need to add something here, but see, I expanded it, I increased the size. It's still fairly sharp, and up here is telling me it's at 518 dpi, so it's more than the minimum of 300 dpi for printing in most places, so I keep that. Now the one thing I want to do is to see the pattern. Just click on the rectangle, which is the actual guide, and just hide that rectangle, and this is how my pattern looks. I think it looks good. And now if you're getting ready to, let's assume that it's a good pattern, I would move things a little bit. Let's see, for example, let's see, I think I like these a little bit better. Some of the overlap here, it's okay with some of the different colors, but I may need to add something in here, in this area here, so that it repeats. Let's see, I have one, maybe this one is a little bit better. Just make sure that we don't go anything less than 300 dpi. And I think this one is just a little bit better to fill the pattern just enough. Okay, and I still want something else for here. Let's see, what do I have here? I have these other flowers similar. Let's undo that, and then make sure that okay, I think it looks good here. I'm sure I used the same colors. And now the other thing I can go over to find that palette that I created using this specific artwork, and maybe change this rectangle, my background layer, to a color that it's in my, actually I like that one, but let's see, there's probably this color, it's already somewhere in there, and it already makes it look a little bit more cohesive. So I like that color. I can play around with the different color backgrounds and have multiple options too. That's another lovely color. Don't like that one for sure. I like this teal, it's good, it's lovely. And I like this blue. Okay, so any of those backgrounds would work, because these colors are actually coming from from the actual artwork, so that I like. And then the next thing we have to do is export. And let's say I want to export in different sizes for different applications. Let's say, for example, I want to export as standard 24 by 24 for wallpaper, but I also want to export it at 4 inches for maybe fabric. So let's do that. In order to do that, head over to the export persona. Here in the slices, you can go ahead and click on that little arrow, and the first thing is select whether you want to export as a PNG or a JPEG. I like a JPEG, best quality is good enough, so I usually do that. The next thing I want to do is I want to export it as one time, and I want to click on where it says the background, and I want to go ahead, select the document name and put the document name first, and then the slice name or any suffix changes. And then the other thing I want to do here is make sure that I export 300 dpi. I don't have to worry too much about this because the actual document is at 300 dpi, so it will export at 300 dpi. And then here I'm fine with that, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit done. So the next thing, we have the first one and we've selected, make sure the name is make sure we add the name 300 dpi. The next thing, I want to export another size, and I just hit on the plus sign, and here I want to use the 4 inches, which is 1200 pixels, so it's 1200p, 1200p, and that's going to give me a new one. Just make sure to click on it, and the name, and add the document name. I usually just do that to make sure that I have the right naming convention, and export at 300 dpi, and done. If you want to print another way, let's say, for example, sometimes I have to print, let's get rid of that one, sometimes I have to print a different type. Instead of JPEG, I have to print TIFF file, so I would do the same thing. So here just click on the larger plus sign, go to TIFF, select the TIFF at 24 or whatever the size you need, and I usually just click on it, put the document name, make sure that it says 300 dpi, click OK. So now I'm gonna have 3 copies that are going to be printed or exported at the same time. If this is something that I use all the time, then what I usually do is just save the preset. So you can go to the 3 bars menu, make sure that I'm clicking on the full export all the data, and then here create export set of preset. So now this is my preset. I'm just gonna say export 24 inches and 4 inches and TIFF original or something along those lines, and hit OK. So the next time I want to export, I have it available in my exports here. Export 24 inches and 4 inches TIFF original. So all I have to do is just select it, and once you export, you're going to go ahead and find it available. So it's exporting the items. Now I can go over to my pattern collections, and I have these pink flowers that I just created, and then I didn't change the name, but I have the JPEG file at 24 inches. I have the TIFF file at 24 inches, and I have the JPEG file at 1200 pixels. And just make sure you save these and give it a proper name. And that's how I create simple patterns using the Dimond template in Affinity Designer from my watercolor artwork. So I hope you learned something fun today, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.